Hello everyone and welcome back to another RPG Paper Maker tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to create a classic overworld map like we know from old RPGs that you can use for the player to easily pass between towns and places like that. And for this, at first I created a file that is 1024 on 1024 pixels big. And I went into the tile sets that the engine already offers, the pre-made tile sets that you can use, and I chose some biomes that I thought could be nice in combination, so we have some variety. I chose the jungle biome and some snowy tile set, and I also picked a volcano one that I ended up not using later on because I wasn't sure how to really build a volcano, but I might try that out at some point. And then some stuff that is from a dungeon tile set that I felt could be interesting on Overworld Map. And I started by creating this landscape on water, and then I created this new file that I'm gonna call the Overworld Map, inserted the file. Here you can see it all combined on one tile set. Now this is not gonna have collisions yet, I'm gonna add those later, but first let's create another map. So here I can show you how I started with all this. I made this 190 on 90 blocks big, and I picked the auto tile of the water. I first had to figure out the right color, and I just started with the normal grass tile and checked if everything works, everything plays as it's supposed to be, and I just made some random shapes on the water. Now, of course, you can create some more depth by using mountains and stuff like that, which I'll be using for one part of this island to create the winter area, to have that be more of a mountain area. I also decided to go with the isometric camera property because I feel that looks more like when you typically walk over an overworld map. So here you can see what it looks like. Now, depending on the size of the map, you will potentially see the edges of the water and have to work with a background. This is probably way easier if you make some kind of sky island and you don't have that around. I'm not sure if with the newest updated version, which we're working here with 3.1 right now, it's automatically updated by Steam. I'm using the Steam version of RPG Paper Maker. I'm not sure if with that one you can create larger maps than 100 on 100 blocks, because with previous versions I ran into the issue that the whole game would crash and the file would basically become corrupted. So if you want to make larger maps, I recommend to just make a project for testing map sizes. I also ran into the issue that when I placed a lot of trees as quadra sprites, that would also have the same consequence, especially on such big maps. But I was trying to create a forest, so I was clearly overdoing it, right? It happened with an RPG that I was working on. So always be careful about stuff like that so you don't ruin your own project. So I tried to create some little beach area here and to connect the normal forest area with this jungle area. So you have also an island to go to, and I'm gonna add a little town later on, some variety with the plants, some variety with the trees, right? I'm using quadra sprites for everything here because I feel like it works the best with the camera property and what I'm trying to do here right now, but of course you can also experiment with other types like the face sprite option and stuff like that. And yeah, created this hill for the winter area, added some little decorations, and just checked what it looks like so far. So the thing that we're gonna do next is we're gonna build a little town, and I'm gonna show you how to make the transition work between the overworld map and the actual town map. But yeah, for now, this is fine to work with. So this is where I ran into a bit of an issue. So as you can see, the houses are way too big for this map. And with the previous version that I was using, I think it was 2.11, I was able to change the scale and make it lower than 1. This made it so the sprite and everything in the model, it would still work perfectly and literally just be smaller. However, when I tried to do it in this version, it did not work. And I went back to check on the 3D objects and I saw, oh, it always just resets it to 0 if I try to make it less than 1. So instead I went ahead and just built a fence and everything. And then I found out, hey, I still have, let me pause this real quick. I still have from the version 2.11, back then I made a house be the scale less than 1. I don't remember if it was 0.5 or 0.75 or something else, but that was still in there. So, and it was still working. But when you go into the 3D objects, the scale was shown as 0, but it's not, right? So I was able to copy that, and a copied version would work, and I put another house skin on it, and that's how I was able to just make the house smaller. Now, this is really practical because it means you just need to design the houses once for the town, and you don't have to make 2 whole separate designs. However, this would only work if you work with, for example, version 2.11. If I'm incorrect here, and it was a different version, I'm gonna put it in the comment section. But if you first use that version and then resize all the objects you want to have resized and then update to the newest version, or you decide to work with the earlier version. I hope they fix this in the future. I don't know why this has changed. I don't know if this was done on purpose, but for how it is right now, you would have to jump between versions, use an older version if you want to do this, or you make new designs. If you can work with 3D models really well, you could, for example, resize the 3D model in a 3D modeling engine. I tried to do this, but I was unsuccessful. I'm not good with 3D modeling and just like navigating these engines. But then I don't know if you would have to remake the design nonetheless, because the size of the model is now different, but the scaling is still 1. So that would also not necessarily bring the result you want. So if you don't want to jump between versions, you'll most likely have to basically design a block and place it as a house here that's just smaller and give it the simpler, smaller pixel design from the design that you use for the actual houses. So that sucks a little bit, and as I said, I hope they fix this in the future. If I find out that they fix this, then I will also comment that under this video in the future. But what we're doing here right now is we're rotating the buildings. This is something that is pretty bad in version 2.11 that I used before, because there you need to put in the numbers and it can go crazy sometimes and not really do what you want to do. But this time, with this updated version, you actually have this ball right here, these circles, where you can pull the building or whatever object you have, whatever 3D object, in any direction that you want. You could even turn it upwards, and I'm very, very happy about this update because it was a nightmare before, and I was already planning to make a video on how you manage with those numbers and which number exactly in which section then has what result, and just yeah, but that seems a little bit unnecessary right now. But if someone out there still uses an older version, would like to have a tutorial on that, I can absolutely do that. Now, let's continue with this. So I'm basically repositioning the houses sideways, so it looks a little bit more natural. And then I went in and checked if everything works, or if the program rejects my smaller size, smaller scaled house right here, but everything works as it's supposed to. I also put this little sign there thinking, hey, there could be the town name on this, right? And this is when I start making the map that we're gonna transition to when the player gets close to this town, right? I'm gonna use the town tileset here, or was it the forest tileset? No, it was the town tileset, right? And we're just gonna build a very simple town, but still keep to the overall size, shape, look, and everything that we see on the overworld map. So I'm going to use the same house. I'm going to go with some fencing right here. Now, usually if I would put more effort into this, I would rip I would rim this map with some mountains and stuff like that, so the transition when the player looks around from ground to horizon looks way more natural. But for this tutorial, I'm just gonna go very simplistic. I'm just gonna rim it with some trees and stuff like that, and of course a fence. This is a fence that I designed myself just for stuff like this. I'm going to use the auto tile path of the grasslands to create this more somewhat natural looking path between the houses. And I'm also going to test out some bodies of water. I'm not going to place NPCs in this one for right now because that's not what this video is about. But I just wanted to show you a little bit of what the process could look like for you if you want to implement something like this in your game. Try to make it a little bit more natural looking with the grass and stuff like that. And now we're gonna work on the event. So I marked the spot where the player touches the ground. Of course, you can also use hero action here. I like to use hero touch. And now we're gonna teleport the player to the map we just designed. Now here you gotta be careful. You can't teleport them to the same spot that they will touch to then teleport back. So if you look more closely, let me go back for a moment. So if you look more closely, I'm placing the spot the player teleports to right before the spot the player would touch. So these circled ones, those will be the where the player has to touch to get out of the town, but when a player gets into the town, it's going to be in front of that. Because if you don't do that, and you make it the same location, the player it's either not going to work, or the player's going to get stuck, or it's going to be like this teleportation loop, and we definitely don't want that. But if you make it player action based, then you don't have to worry about stuff like this. Okay, now let's continue right there. All right. I also set it to north, so that means when a player gets teleported there, they'll be looking north. In this case, it wasn't necessary because the player has to enter north anyway, but in some cases it can be awkward if the player gets teleported and they're facing completely different direction and may even walk right into the teleportation spot again, and that's just a little bit annoying, right? And we don't want that. We want it all to work smoothly. So now we go into the town, we make the same kind of event, but we make a teleport to the overworld map, which we have right here, where I also have marked the spot with the circle on the ground. Of course, it's up to you if you want to make the spot somewhat not noticeable or not with a mark like that. You can also make the player have this transition of like fading in and out. You can actually, I didn't record that part, but here you can see start and end, fade in, fade out. You can make that the player has this fade in of white or black or something. I think there was also a zoom in option. You can also completely just leave this away and have it just bloop, you know. But I like to have this fade in, fade out, black transition. I find it very smooth, just looks nicer, a little bit more polished, right? And again, with the direction, going south. All right, and we're just gonna copy this to the next spot, and it's gonna work just the same. I think I forgot something here, which is why I had to go back, but we'll see that in a moment. Yeah, so I just walked around the map at first, see if everything looks how I want it to look, right? How does it feel to walk through that map? And you can see, yeah, I made a mistake. I think I marked it as, I forgot to change it from hero action to hero touch. Another reminder to always playtest the stuff you've added to your game. I know some people don't really playtest their games. I cannot understand it. Every time I take like an hour to work on my games, and I just at least once go in there and check if all the stuff I added actually works, because otherwise in the end it will just pile up and you don't even know everything that you've added. So this way I always make sure that everything works as it's supposed to. And yeah, now we're gonna go back, we're gonna add some collisions to all of this. Piece of advice I have for collisions, especially with like trees and stuff, you don't want it to actually completely cover the sprite. So you actually want to make the collision a little bit thinner than the sprite. That means that if the player is just like a little bit too close to the tree, they can still keep walking, and it's not like this one pixel that keeps the player from walking. It just makes things kind of awkward. So in order to make that more fluid, I always look to make it slimmer than the whole sprite. And here you can see I can walk around the trees with no issue. I'm not getting stuck anywhere. And I'm just like testing out all the collisions. And yeah, so far everything is working as it's supposed to. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using overworld maps in my future games, but here you can also see the rim of the map. As I said, you have to experiment with like larger map sizes and stuff like that. I have to do that myself as well. And yeah, this is how you make a classic overworld map in RPG Paper Maker. And thank you so much for watching my video. See you in the next one. If you made it to the end of this video, consider checking out my itch.io page where I publish my games. I started publishing games last year, and I started out with making dress-up games, and then I tried out some silly stuff when it comes to visual novels. Made my first visual novel for a game jam where I was using RenPy for the first time, and it was a catastrophe. But then I managed to finish and polish a full visual novel, which is called Cosmic Bliss, which is my most popular game so far. It's a horror visual novel, so if you're into stuff like that, check it out. It's for free. And I also always have these in development windows right here where you can always see what am I currently working on, like this creature capture game that I'm currently making in RPG Paper Maker. I still have to figure a lot of stuff out, so as soon as I have more stuff figured out, I will make tutorial videos about how to make a creature capture game in RPG Paper Maker. So if you're interested in that, let me know down in the comments below. And I'm also working on a full visual novel this time that I'm gonna make with RenPy, because my last RenPy project was this little game jam thing. Which is, the Reboot project is a story that I've been working on for a long time, and I'm still not sure if it's gonna be like a game series or if I'm gonna continue it as a comic or a book. I have no idea, but I'm gonna make the first chapter as a game and then see what people say, what preferences, if people even like it, right? If you scroll down here, you also find the current status of all of my projects, which is on my Ko-fi page. This is free to access. Here you can see everything that I'm currently working on and where it's at. If I have dropped a project you're interested in, if I'm currently working on a project you're interested in, and all of that. And of course, on my Ko-fi page, you can also support me through a membership or a one-time donation if you're interested in that. If you don't want to spend any money, you can also just follow this channel here on YouTube. It helps out a lot. You can like the video, you can share stuff, right? And honestly, I'm just happy to see people play my video games, and I'm also happy to help anyone who's interested in making games with RPG Paper Maker. I've also been thinking about making videos of other engines in the future. But I'm first going to continue with RPG Paper Maker, and then maybe, for example, I could make videos of RenPy, I could make videos of Twine. So if you're interested in any engine like that, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. Also, shout out to my Ko-fi member, Rio Kinney. And with that, we're done. Thank you for watching to the end.